The first time the world tried to pretend nothing did not exist, everyone laughed. The Edict on Existential Harm, signed in a televised ceremony thick with patriotic brass, bright banners, and grim smiles, announced that the digit zero and every linguistic equivalent of the concept of nothingness would be removed from public life, education, commerce, and code. The new statute was presented as an act of mercy. For 2 decades, self-harm statistics had climbed in parallel with the spread of a self-annihilating meme that took root in online echo chambers. What was the point of love, labor, or law? Asked the meme. If the cosmos itself could be reduced to a cold cipher saying, nothing matters. Eradicate the numeric gateway to nihilism, boomed the minister of human meaning, and we shall heal the rift in the collective soul. That was year 1 of the Count Bayans. It was also the year Dr. Leora Vili lost her position at the National Institute for Mathematical Sciences for refusing to retitle her course from Topology and the Empty Set to Topology and the Foundational Set. Students were required to recite the newly authored counting creed. 1 is the first, the last, and the eternal beginning. They performed the recitation with awkward pauses, where 0 used to live in the mental rhythm of enumeration, the way a mouth hesitates after losing a tooth. Leora watched their unease and understood that, beneath the surface of compliance, their disrupted inner metronomes were telling them something was wrong. Phones and computers were patched so that strings of zeros were silently replaced by a dash. Price tags, license plates, and hotel rooms were reprinted. Families, whose addresses ended with the proscribed digit, received cheerful notice to shift upward by 1. It's like living in a spiral staircase, an elderly neighbor complained to Leora. By the time you climb, the landing is gone. The colossal undertaking gave the economy another jolt, letting the state cast itself as a savior of both spirit and commerce. At first, the ban seemed merely absurd, but then algorithms hiccuped. A week after the edict, automated banking ledgers rounded away fractional cents that would once have been cushioned by zeros. The fractions accumulated, vanished, and reappeared in the books as phantom numbers, bloating or starving balances at random. Air traffic routing software misread coordinates that should have contained trailing zeros, causing near misses, and one mid-Atlantic disaster the authorities swore was due to pilot error. Each glitch intensified the public's resolve not to question the wisdom of the ban. They were taught to blame saboteurs, remnants of the nihilist underground. The underground did exist, just not in the shape propaganda imagined. It called itself the Null Set Society. Its members were mathematicians, programmers, cosmologists, linguists, and the occasional poet who understood that the removal of nothingness doesn't produce fullness, it produces fracture. They met in abandoned libraries, empty subway tunnels, or on rooftops after curfew, where the night air carried the smell of ozone from the failing power grid. There they traced circles in candle soot and whispered proofs older than empire. To reduce suspicion, they used analog ink instead of contraband binary code. Where they once wrote 0, they drew a tiny ringed planet, a dot with a halo. Leora attended her first meeting on a drizzly equinox night in March. She followed a map encoded in the Fibonacci spacing between telephone poles. At the station's forgotten platform, she found a trap door no commuter knew. Below it lay a maintenance hall turned lecture chamber. A dozen people sat on overturned crates before a sheet that served as projector screen. The presenter, a tall, non-binary physicist named Sasha, blew chalk dust off an ancient slate and began, "The universe insists on balance between presence and absence. Silence makes music audible, vacuum births particle pairs, and the zero vector anchors rotational symmetry. The edict amputates half the equations that describe reality. We are not dealing with politics alone, friends. We are trying to prevent the unraveling of the cosmos itself." A polite but urgent cough from a corner added, "And possibly get our funding back." Laughter. After the mirth faded, Leora raised her hand. "If we're right," she said, "symptoms should be measurable." "They already are," answered Sasha. Cosmic microwave background readings show a drop in anisotropy beyond instrumentation error. It's as if the early universe forgets its own fluctuations. Leora's skin prickled. She used to lecture about how the tiny temperature differences were seeds of galaxies. If the variance goes away, she murmured, structure could dissolve. Sasha nodded. A flat sameness, a mute glow, a cosmic ban on difference itself. They clicked to the next slide. Prediction: gravitational lensing anomalies will multiply within 6 months. Another slide. Black holes may evaporate faster than Hawking allowed. End state. Universal heat death ahead of schedule. Few in the room slept that night. They wrote project outlines on pizza boxes and compiled an archive of unauthorized research, each file copied to 3 locations in case 2 were raided. They needed proof that policymakers could not ignore without revealing their own ignorance. Yet proof required the very notation the law forbade. They would have to smuggle zero back into the heart of public consciousness, not merely as a digit but as a concept felt in the bones. There was, Leora argued, a psychological path. People feared a nihilism preaching that everything is void. What they needed to remember was that voidness itself gives shape to meaning. Show a crowd the letter O, a circle suggesting both open-mouthed and empty center, and they would feel the hush of possibility, not despair. She proposed guerrilla murals, luminous rings painted on city walls, each containing a line of text from different wisdom traditions. The Tao is nothing, yet all things are drawn to it. Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. Out of nothing, God created. The society embraced the plan. Street artists, some unreformed graffiti writers, others moonlighting museum curators, went to work. Within a fortnight, concrete pillars, billboards, and even the sides of delivery drones bore the emblem. The Ministry of Human Meaning tried to scrub the rings, but new ones appeared faster, etched with laser pointers onto advertisement holograms, and people noticed. Commuters filmed them, children traced them with fingertips. Elders sat down on bus benches and fell into long-neglected memories of loss, desire, and breath. Still, symbols alone could not repair flight navigation software or the cosmic microwave background. For that, Leora and her circle designed the Null Beacon. It was a device both simple and radical, a single-board computer running forbidden mathematics, connected to a radio transmitter capable of bouncing a signal off the moon. Every 19 hours, when orbital geometry aligned, the beacon would broadcast a pulse string of primes, then Fibonacci, then the lattice of empty set brackets. Inserted into each sequence were 0, tagged with quantum error-correcting codes so they arrived intact. The transmission would seed radio telescopes worldwide with data the public would notice, even if they could not interpret. Observatories relied on citizen science. No force on Earth could stop enthusiastic amateurs from screenshots, speculation, and viral posting. Once the zeros were documented in raw cosmic data, no cleric of meaning could blame nihilist terrorists without contradicting photons from the moonlit sky. Construction of the beacon had to be clandestine. Components were smuggled from university scrap heaps labeled digital waste. The ring-shaped ceramic antenna came from a defunct particle collider. Everything fit within a crate stamped fragile fruit. By midsummer, the beacon perched atop an abandoned mountain observatory, powered by repurposed solar panels that tracked the sun like solemn sunflowers. That was when Inspector Rusk entered the story. The ministry's most gifted hunter. They could detect subversive patterns in drywall cracks. Rusk scorned the official slogan, "One is enough," as childish, yet served the state with ferocity born of private grief. Their brother had vanished after posting a manifesto that the world deserved to end. Rusk blamed the concept of nothingness for corrupting the mind of anyone who looked into its abyss. To protect living beings, they believed, one must seal the abyss by force if needed. Late August, Leora returned to her apartment to find her door sealed with hazard tape. The warrant accused her of numerical contraband. She breathed slowly, evaluating. The null set diagrams taped under her desk, the cracked abacus missing its bottom bead, even the coffee mug labeled, "You had me at 0.999. Any item could be damning evidence. She texted a single word to Sasha, "Evacuate." Then she slipped into the throng of festival-goers on the boulevard, vanishing amid drums and incense. The society scattered. Yet scattering was itself an homage to Zero. Remove a center and you gain space between fragments. Leora traveled by night train, using an alias tied to a ghost record created before the ban. The state's database, shorn of zeros, had holes she could exploit. In the train's dim carriage, she revised the beacon's activation code, inserting a self-destruct routine in case of capture. When she disembarked near the mountain, a storm had rolled in, lacing the peaks with violet forks of lightning. She climbed the washed-out path, soaked to her knees, clutching the waterproof drive that carried humanity's forbidden nothing. Inside the observatory's cracked dome stood Sasha, calibrating the lunar reflector. "Bad news travels on fast legs," they said. "Rusk raided the tunnels an hour ago. They know about the beacon." "We're ahead by 1 lunar cycle," Leora answered. "Let's finish." They booted the system. Static popped through the headset, resolving into the hiss of cosmic background radiation. The code scrolled, green on black, init_null for I=1, less than empty, ++, transmit_prime, i.e. if, i.e. is Fibonacci, transmit_0. An elegant rebellion. Outside, thunder answered with subterranean rumbles. Minutes before scheduled broadcast, a wind-torn door swung open and slammed against the wall. Inspector Rusk, rain shining like quicksilver in their hair, raised a gun, not at Leora, but at the console. "Step away," they commanded. "Deactivate." "Listen to the sky," Leora said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The universe is starving for its own seeds. Without them, you lose more than nihilism. You lose everything that flows from contrast. Laughter, flavor, color, warmth." Rusk's jaw tightened. "My brother lost everything because he believed nothing was sacred. Or because he was not allowed to wrestle with the void without shame," Sasha offered gently. Rusk glanced at the readout. Lunar Echo window T120 seconds. Their forefinger twitched on the trigger. Hitting the console would fry the circuit. Missing might ricochet into the dish, crippling the reflector. Leora read desperation behind the anger. She spoke quickly. "Zero is not an invitation to despair. It is the womb of potential. Picture any love you've felt. At its core is a singular silence where you and the beloved meet, free of clutter. That silence is zero. Ban it, and you ban the place where connection happens." "You cloak poison in poetry," Rusk said, but their arm wavered. The console chimed, awaiting final handshake. Sasha stepped forward, palms visible. "If you fear nothingness," they said, "help us define it properly. Stay. Watch the transmission. If the sky does not fall, then join us. If it does, we share the blame." Leora added, "We have installed a kill command. Speak it and we halt. Your choice." Rain drummed on the metal roof like fingertips on a drum. Rusk lowered the gun, eyes darting between them and the countdown. "T60. "Very well," they said at last, "but if I detect even a hint of collapse, you end it." "Agreed." Leora's hands flew over keys, unlocking the final gate. Zero appeared on the monitor, a perfect, glowing circle. Rusk inhaled sharply, as if seeing a lost lover's face. The beacon's transmitter whirred, shot its beam skyward. Through the dome's cracked aperture, they watched it paint the clouds with pale cobalt light, a column connecting Earth to Moon. Signals pinged back as speckles across the readout. Lunar regolith scattering digits into open space, relaying to ground stations worldwide. Within seconds, social media feeds erupted in bewilderment. Amateur astronomers posted spectrographs streaked with patterns unmistakable to anyone with undergraduate maths. 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, 377, 610, 987, 1597, and nestled in each pair the reborn cipher. Rusk stared. A tremor traveled through the floor earth, machine, then subsided. The roof beams held. Outside, the storm broke, revealing stars as crisp as glass. Rusk exhaled. The world is still here. Check the background radiation, Sasha said. They patched into a remote telescope. Data streamed. Temperature differentials, re-emerging, tiny but definite, exactly matching pre-edict baselines. Across the room, Leora pulled up a gravitational lensing alert dashboard. Fresh anomalies logged themselves, aligning with predictions of galaxies warping light. Not catastrophe restoration. The moment was immense and nearly silent, as if every heart in the room skipped the same beat. Rusk set the gun on a console and leaned against a rusted pillar. I thought we had to choose between emptiness and meaning, but you're telling me emptiness is just another kind of meaning. We're telling you, Leora said, that nothing is not the enemy. It's the canvas. Sasha glanced at the logs. Transmission loop will finish in 3 minutes. After that, the beacon will hibernate until tomorrow. We should leave before the patrols. No, Rusk decided. I will file an incident report. Unauthorized broadcast by unknown parties already vanished. Equipment destroyed in lightning strike. They smiled for the first time. A small, uncertain tilt of lips. Sometimes the best way to protect a nation is to let it realize its laws are impossible to enforce, Leora nodded, and to realize that some laws are written into the universe itself. 2 hours later, back in the city, television pundits tried to explain the lunar signal. Official spokespeople offered theories about solar flares or foreign espionage. But children had already replicated the prime Fibonacci null pattern with sidewalk chalk. Teachers, startled to rediscover how smoothly 0 fit into arithmetic, found themselves filling forbidden columns on blackboards before remembering the ban. Programmers patched code for free, announcing they had been waiting for the chance to restore sanity. A wave of laughter rippled through factories when the payroll system balanced perfectly for the first time in 19 months. The ministry convened emergency sessions, yet to prosecute entire populations for drawing a circle would brand the regime ridiculous beyond repair. Instead, they quietly introduced Revision 9 of the edict. The number 0 was henceforth permissible for technical use only, so long as citizens refrained from philosophical indulgence. Newspapers ran the headline, "Nothing to see here," unaware of their own punchline. By year's end, the phrase became ironic shorthand for the population's collective inside joke, but the deeper shift was interior. With 0 back in daily speech, people rediscovered the pause between inhale and exhale, the Sabbath hush between weeks, the minute of mourning that dignifies grief. Suicide rates began to fall, not because emptiness had vanished, but because it could be named without terror. Therapists incorporated breathing exercises that visualized 0 as a pool of still water holding reflection rather than annihilation. Nightclubs adopted null hour, cutting music for 60 seconds so dancers could feel heartbeats throb in sync. In the borderlands of astronomy, black hole evaporation rates normalized. The cosmic microwave background regained its speckle. Something like relief echoed in the static of deep space probes. Leora, Sasha, and Rusk met beneath a planetarium dome. Newly reopened for public sky shows, 1,000 visitors tilted heads to watch a laser pointer trace the timeline of nothing. Mesopotamian counting tokens, Indian 0, Mayan glyphs, Arabic scholarship, Italian merchants, modern code. When the presenter reached the era of the Great Ban and its quiet repeal, applause thundered so loud it blurred into a roar, then ceased in a sudden collective hush arranged by no one. For a full 10 seconds the auditorium rested in silence. Only then did the lights come up on faces wet with tears, smiling. After the show, Rusk turned to Leora. Will there always be another attempt to expel the void? Likely, she said. Fear is stubborn, but so is curiosity. And the null set society? Sasha winked. We're redesigning ourselves. A circle of scholars acknowledging absence in form in absence. Anyone may join so long as they promise to protect the right to imagine nothing, Rusk considered. Include me. Leora reached into her bag and produced a small badge, a ringed planet, dot inside halo. She pinned it to Rusk's lapel. Welcome. Remember, when the next edict comes, or the next fear, or the next heartbreak, guard the gap, cherish the pause, count all the way to nothing. then beyond. Outside the planetarium, the sun had set, leaving a twilight that felt impossibly expansive, like a breath held by the whole city. Above, street lamps blinked on one by one, leaving the spaces between them dark, and therefore visible, and therefore alive.